So I just watched the new Roadhouse movie with Conor McGregor, and I have to be honest with you guys, it absolutely sucks. Like it's a terrible movie. Comment section are gonna be typing, "Oh, what did you expect, man? Did you expect an Oscar-winning movie? This is gonna be a dumb, fun, entertaining movie, man. What the hell were you expecting, man? Oscar-winning performances? Like, come on, man. You just can't have fun. You can't have fun." I know a lot of you guys are gonna be commenting that in the comments below, or at least thinking that. I'm gonna tell you why you're wrong. I'm gonna tell you why you're wrong here. That's actually the biggest sin with the movie. I'm gonna cut right to the chase. The reason why this movie absolutely sucks is because it's actually not as I mean, it's a very dumb and goofy movie, but it's actually not that fun or entertaining, which is the biggest problem with the film. And with all that being said, the biggest problem with this movie, and I'm gonna talk about Conor McGregor, the biggest problem with this movie, man, just as a movie, is the pacing. The pacing is absolutely atrocious. And I know there was a lot of people saying that this movie should have been released in theaters, but after you watch the movie, it definitely feels like a streaming film. It plays like a streaming film. And in fact, it doesn't even play like a movie. I would say that it plays like a show, like a first episode pilot, because the movie starts, you get introduced to Dalton. You know, he's a former UFC fighter. He gets hired by this girl to protect his roadhouse from some rich assholes. You pretty much, if you watch the trailer, you pretty much already have a good idea of the movie. And you know, things are happening in the first like 10 to 20 minutes, and you're okay, they're establishing these characters, they're establishing that he's protecting the roadhouse, that he's a bouncer. And then the movie just kind of falls flat, in my opinion, because it feels like it takes so long for the movie to get going. And I feel like, you know, you have your initial fight with the assholes in the bar and stuff, and you're like, okay, they're establishing that, you know, he's a great fighter and that, you know, nobody's gonna be able to beat him in hand-to-hand combat. And you get all this development, and you're like, okay, so when are we gonna get to the actual plot? And it takes like about an hour and 10 minutes to actually get to the main plot of the movie and for things to actually start happening. And by that time, I was already checked out, man. I was already checked out. So I felt like this movie's 2 hours. This movie could have been an hour and a half, in my opinion, because there was so many scenes in the beginning where they just drag, where you see Dalton changing his shirt and sleeping on a boat, and you're like, what type of movie is this? Like you wanna embrace the dumb fun, man. So I feel like the pacing is the worst part about this movie. So what are some good things that I actually liked about this movie? Well, the last 30 minutes, because the last 30 minutes, as goofy and dumb as it is, it actually embraces itself and it doesn't try to be this serious film, and it's not dragging, it's just action packed. I mean, that's what we all wanted to see anyway, you know what I'm saying? Like nobody expected this movie to be an Oscar-winning performance or Oscar-winning movie, but I expected it to at least be dumb and entertaining, and I feel like it's dumb, but it's not entertaining. It's very pretentious, it's overproduced, and the fights themselves, man, like I thought we were gonna get very like grounded level fights, but the fights themselves like are terrible, overproduced, bad CGI, bad cinematography, bad editing. I mean, the punches don't even look like they land, and they have guys like Conor McGregor who are actually UFC fighters, and you would think, okay, the fighting is actually gonna be a lot better, and no, the fighting is actually a lot worse, and you're like, why? Why did they do that? Like, why did they add CGI to the fights? Why does it feel very overproduced? And after you watch the movie, like I said, there's no way you can convince me that this is a movie level, that this is a movie theater level experience. You know what I'm saying? It's really not. It definitely feels like a streaming film. And like I said, the worst end of this movie is just being mediocre and boring. Like, at least if you're gonna be bad, be really bad where it's fun, or like actually be a decent movie. And I thought Jake Gyllenhaal was well casted. I thought everybody in the film was well casted. There was good moments here and there, but just the movie itself, like together, it just doesn't live up, in my opinion. It's not that entertaining of a film. There was some interesting backstory with Dalton's character when it came to the fact that he was a former UFC fighter and that he had PTSD because he fought like a friend and he beat him really bad and stuff. And I felt like the movie they were hinting at with the flashbacks was actually a better movie, and it probably would have been a better story than the one we got, the one with the whole roadhouse. Like that could have been like 30 minutes. Whereas in like that story, that flashback they keep cutting to with Dalton's character about being in the UFC, I felt like that would have been a more interesting film. So I felt like it was kind of a missed opportunity. I felt like the story was very thin and stretched out. And then let's talk about what you guys really want me to talk about. How is Conor McGregor in this film? Conor McGregor is really bad in this movie, but I'm gonna be honest, it's not his fault. It's really not his fault. And I'm gonna tell you why. Conor McGregor doesn't show up into this movie. Like, I want to say, like, he shows up in the movie for the first time like an hour into the movie, and I remember watching the film and I'm just like, man, when is Conor McGregor gonna show up, man? When is this guy gonna show up? He shows up and he plays like a very over the top version of himself, and I don't understand why they went with that. Like, it could have just been Conor McGregor playing himself, but it could have been subtle, man. It was so obnoxious, like, Nox is on the job, it's over, baby. That's literally how he would say his lines, and you're like, it feels very out of place. It feels like he was reading his lines rather than actually interacting with the other actors. So it was very, very bad. But I don't really think it's Conor McGregor's fault. I feel like it was the fault of the producer and director for not, like, you know, having the awareness to tell him, you know what, this scene is not working. Let's tone it down a little bit. Let's be a little bit more subtle. And I think the character would have worked well because it's not a very complicated character. He's just playing like the Joker. And that's basically it. You know what I'm saying? There's not a lot of dimensions to the character. So I don't understand why Conor McGregor was doing an impression of himself. It just felt very over the top. It did not really work for the film. And even though the movie was very dumb, he still felt out of a place in a very dumb film. So I felt like maybe the takes that they chose from Conor McGregor weren't the best. And he did say in an interview that, he shot a lot of takes and he wasn't necessarily happy with the scenes that they chose for him. And he felt like they could have chose better takes that they filmed and stuff. So after watching the film, I think he's right, man. I felt like I don't really feel like Conor McGregor is really to blame for this because I felt like he could have just played himself and it would have worked even better. But it almost felt like they were like, we want you to do a very, very over the top version of yourself where you just stand out and stuff. And I felt like it was very unnecessary. Like, if Conor McGregor could have just played a subtle, evil, version of himself, I think it would have worked perfectly. But they just make him like be very, very over the top. His line delivery is absolutely terrible. And like I said, if you're watching this film because of Conor McGregor, he doesn't show up into the movie until like an hour in. And honestly, that's kind of when the movie becomes a little bit more interesting and entertaining. And the last 30 minutes is probably the best part of the movie. And that's kind of like the scenes that you watch in the trailer with the whole action on the boat, on the yachts, the big fight scenes and stuff. The fight scenes weren't anything to like brag about, but at least something is happening. At least it's more entertaining than that slow burn in the first hour. I'm just like, I feel like nothing's really happening in this movie and the story is not that interesting. It feels very thin. Guys, it's not a movie I would recommend. I feel like it's a waste of time. I feel like the movie sucks, and this is coming from an MMA fan of somebody that just expected a dumb fun movie. The problem with this film is that it's not fun. It's really not that fun. Low energy as well. Like, I felt like people were just going through the motions, saying their lines, but it just didn't have any impact on them. I just felt like it was terribly directed, terribly written. And yeah, Conor McGregor's in it. Is it fun sometimes? Are some of his scenes funny and enjoyable? Yeah, man. But you could probably watch those scenes on Twitter, on YouTube, without actually wasting 2 hours of your time watching this film, in my opinion. So, guys, I thought Roadhouse was a shit movie. It was not that fun. It was a slow burn. The action scenes were overproduced and had really bad CGI, very low energy. And like I said, Conor McGregor, I felt like they did not choose the best scenes for him. He felt very overplayed. I felt like they could have been a little bit more subtle with Conor McGregor and the execution would have been a lot better. But anyway, guys, please make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on Roadhouse and I'll see you guys in the next one.